right in today, and then I'm going to talk about the actual foundation and everything after the demo. So it's going to be a fairly short demo, but I feel like I have a lot to say about it, so I wanted to knock the demo out first. I'm a little shiny today from my skincare, so the primer I'm going to use is my Dior Skin Forever and Everwear base, because I just don't want to put any more shine onto my face. So I'm just going to prime with that, and then I'm going to use my Armani corrector under my eyes. Okay, so I am just going to go straight in. I am in the color 6. Really quick, I'm going to show you a comparison to what I wear in Luminous Silk. So this is 5.5 in Luminous Silk, and this is 6 in the powder fabric. The 6 is a tad bit darker. Actually, when you put them on your hand, this is the 6. It does have more of a yellow undertone, but this is the 5.5. The 5.5 almost looks darker than the 6. So beware when you're picking out colors. They are not the same from what I have found as other of the luminous, or not luminous, but other Armani foundations. I know in the Lasting Silk, I was a completely different number than 5.5. So just, I don't feel like personally that they are consistent across the realm. So don't go in blind when you're looking for a color. But again, I'm in the color 6. And I use 2 pumps. This is the consistency. Pretty standard, not moussey, not too thick. And I just put a little bit on. And I'm going to use a beauty blender for this demo's purposes, but I will talk about different techniques, application techniques that I tried in the actual talking portion, although I'm talking quite a bit for this. So as you can see, it's pretty medium coverage straight off the bat. I don't have too much to cover, so it's hard to really tell. I just don't think it's like full coverage, because I do see a little bit of redness still over here, right there. Pretty medium coverage, but I am able to put a little bit more on top, so it's buildable to cover it a little bit better. The light is kind of glaring, so I hope you're able to see. It's definitely the most coverage that I care to have in a foundation. I feel like the older I get, the more I appreciate like a to medium coverage foundation. I know some of us need a fuller coverage, but I just, on me personally, I'm really appreciating a more lighter coverage. So this is probably the max that I care to go. And this is what it does. So you can see, really, it does not add luminosity. This is just how luminous I was. My SPF has some luminosity to it, and with all the oils and stuff I put on my face in the morning, like that's the effect it's going to give no matter what I put on top of it. So it's not adding luminosity, but it's still keeping the integrity of the stuff that's under it, which is I'm going to talk about in just a minute. But this is 2 pumps of the Armani powder fabric in the color 6. Okay, so this is with my full face done. Now let's talk about the foundation. Doing this a little bit differently today. I don't plan on doing a final check-in at the end of the day. I'm going to tell you why, and also because it's kind of late in the day. I'm getting a very late start. If you hear any sawing, we are getting our backsplash put in and installed today, so they're having to do a lot of extra work that might be a little bit loud. So I think in the very beginning of the demo, I called this powder fabric, and everybody I've talked to about it, I've called it powder fabric. It is not powder fabric. I don't know why I think it's powder. It's power. So this is the Giorgio Armani Power Fabric Long Wear High Cover Foundation with a broad spectrum, I can't speak, of SPF 25. This is the newest launch in the Armani foundation line, and as far as I can tell at the time of filming, and I will always link everything down below if it's changed, that this is only available on the Armani site as of right now. I bought it the day it launched on the Armani site. It is 1 fluid ounce standard. It comes in the same packaging as the Luminous Silk, Designer Lift, and Lasting Silk. It's the same Armani packaging. It just has red lettering right here where it says Power Fabric, and then it has a red symbol right there. Other than that, I don't see any differences in the other Armani foundations. It does retail for $64, which again is pretty consistent with all the other Armani foundation prices. Again, it does have an SPF 25. The ingredients I mean, are pretty standard. It's a silicone based. It does contain denatured alcohol. I feel that that's pretty par for the course when you're talking about a long wear foundation that also claims to be a matte finish. Alcohol plays a huge part in the longevity of a product and also a matte finish. So you're pretty much going to get that. On the website, it says that it uses a combination of oils. I can't really tell on the ingredients what the oils might be. But it's all kind of Greek to me anyway, so they claim that they use a combination of oils to help provide a seamless, matte, long-lasting finish. You would not think matte and oils to go together. However, the oilier your skin you have, it is beneficial to use oils on your skin. Doesn't make sense when you say it like that, but when you think about why and how, it does. So maybe that's the reasoning for putting oils in this foundation. I don't know. But I'm in the color 6. I already talked about the colors in the demo. So I'm going to talk about how I did this foundation. I did not want to do a first impression. I wanted to really give this a go. So this is the sixth time I've worn this foundation. The first 4 times I took copious amounts of notes with what primer, what powder, how it wore, how long I wore it, what I thought, what I applied it with, and whatnot. So I'm just going to kind of go over those real quick with you and then give you my final thoughts on the foundation. The first time I used it, I used my beloved YSL Touche Éclat Blur Primer and my By Terry Hyaluronic Hydro Blur Primer. I only had, well, not only, I did wear this foundation that day 10 hours and 15 minutes, and I applied it with my Beauty Blender. Now, my very first impressions of this foundation, since this is the first time I wore it, was that it gave a porcelain finish. I felt like I was a doll when I wore this foundation. I felt like it really did blur everything out. And I was kind of curious as to whether or not it was the primer and powder that actually blurred everything out or the foundation, but that was the finish I got the first day. Absolutely no sinking into my fine lines. None whatsoever. After the 10 hours and 15 minutes, I looked in the mirror and I had nothing in my smile lines. I had nothing in my forehead lines. Nothing. I mean, it did not sink at all, and I did not touch up at all. Again, I did not touch up, and there was no shine whatsoever. Nothing peeked through. I did not go to the gym on this day, but still, nothing peeked through. I do have normal skin, but as we know, if you've watched any of my foundation reviews, I do sometimes have a shine of some sort. It's not oils, but it's a shine that peeks through. Did not happen with this. So I got up the next day, day 2, super excited to try this foundation again. And I wanted to go more of a luminous route to see that if I could change the matte finish of the foundation. So I used my Lancer Danny Skin Polish as my primer, which does have a very luminous finish, and my Cover FX Perfect Setting Powder, which while it doesn't have an obvious luminous finish, it does give a radiant effect. This was the longest that I wore the foundation. I had it on for 14 hours and 15 minutes that day. I did apply it with my Makeup Geek face buffer brush, one of my favorite foundation brushes, and I felt that it applied the exact same way with the brush as it did my sponge, which I can rarely say for a foundation. So that is a plus. I don't think the application method matters whatsoever with this foundation. I did have to touch up after about 7 hours. I think the luminosity was coming a little too strong through the foundation, so I touched up with just on the middle of my face with some Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder, and I was set for the rest of the 7 hours that I wore it. So what I figured out that day was that it does take on the finish of the primer and powder you use with it. Some people may not think that's a good thing. I, however, think it's amazing that you can manipulate it to however you want it. If you want it to be more matte, you use a more matte primer and matte setting powder. If you want it to take on a luminous effect, use a luminous primer. So this is something, if you're on a budget and you can really only afford one luxury foundation, buy this foundation and change up your primers and powders. You can make it luminous, you can make it matte. I mean, it really takes on the finish of what primer and powder you're using. Still absolutely no settling, even with the luminous properties of the other products that I used. Absolutely no settling. I cannot stress that enough. And my pores were still very, very smooth. So I think that kind of made me realize that it was the foundation that made my pores so smooth versus the powder and the primer that I used on the first day. So that kind of solidified the fact that the foundation does have pore smoothing qualities to it. Now on day 3, I got a little bit of a later start and I only wore this foundation for 9 hours. I wanted to go back to more of a matte scenario, so I used my It Cosmetics Bye Bye Pores Primer and my Charlotte Tilbury Pressed Powder, the Airbrush Flawless Finish Powder. And I also used a different brush on this day. I used my Delium Tools 968, which is this slanted foundation brush right here. I felt that it applied just as good with this brush as it did with the other brush and as it did with the Beauty Blender. I did go to the gym today. This stayed matte all day long. I did not touch up at all, still no settling, and it lasted very well through my workout, and I sweated a lot that day. I did have a couple of bumps show up on this day, this being the 3rd day, right up here, which is normally where I do have bumps show up if I wear a foundation for too many days in a row that has alcohol in it. They don't stay, they don't progress above the initial bumpiness, and they don't turn into like pimples per se. They're just a little bit of a reaction, and they go away the next day if I don't use that foundation. Not everybody has that reaction. If you have oily skin, I don't think you will at all. So that may not be an issue with a lot of people. I just wanted to address it. And finally, on the last day, I wore this for 10.5 hours. I did go to the gym, but I did it a little bit differently. The 3 days that I wore it, I kept thinking to myself, this reminds me so much of a foundation that I absolutely adore. And if any of y'all have been watching my videos for one video other than this one, you know that my favorite all-time foundation ever is the Shiseido Synchro Skin Lasting Foundation. And this reminded me so much of that foundation that on this last day of testing it for my testing purposes, I decided to not use a primer and use the Shiseido on one half of my face and the Power Fabric on the other half of my face so that I could really see if they really were as close finish and wear time and look and everything as possible as I thought. I did use it with a Beauty Blender that day, and I did set it with my Urban Decay Loose setting powder. It's pretty much the exact same thing as the Shiseido, which some people will say, well, why would I need this? It's $20 more than the Shiseido. Maybe this is telling you you don't need it. Maybe it's telling you if you have the Shiseido, get that instead because you are going to save $20. On this day, this was a Thursday, and I always on Thursday and Friday start peeling really badly from my retinol that I use on Sundays. It's only for those 2 days. I exfoliate really well and it goes away, but it did work decent on top of the peeling. It didn't make the peeling, it didn't aggravate it, it didn't make it worse. And because I didn't use a primer with this, I realized you don't need one. It lasted the same amount of time. I did not have any shine come through. It still looked good on my pores. It still gave me that porcelain effect without a primer. So I think that really helps too, especially if you're looking into buying a $64 foundation. You might not want to have to put an extra cash out for a primer, and I just don't think you need to. Unless you're super oily or super dry. But this was the day that I had a lot of peeling, and I just didn't use a primer. One of the reasons was because I didn't want to rub on my face any more than I had to, aggravate that peeling that was happening. So I just feel like unless you are super oily and you might want to use an oil control primer where you need it, I just don't feel like this foundation requires one. So again, I think it's so comparable to the Shiseido. So knowing that, you have to know that I absolutely give this an A++++. I love it. I love it. It does give medium to full coverage. I think it's buildable to full. Straight out the bat, it's medium, and I like it like that. Again, it comes in 20 shades. It has the SPF 25. I have not tried flash photo testing on this. I just don't take flash photo testing, and if I know I'm going to, or flash photos in general, if I know I'm going to, I just won't wear a foundation with SPF. So that's just me personally. I also feel like if you wear the right powder on top of it, you're not going to have issues with it unless it's like SPF 50. So hopefully this answered all your questions. It's a little bit more of a different format that I normally do my foundation reviews on, but I feel like it gave you the best of the best information since I did try it out with pretty much every possible scenario you could think of with primers and powders and hours that I wore it. It is super long lasting. This is on par with the Estee Lauder and looks better on my skin, in my opinion, the Estee Lauder Double Wear. So that gives you an indication of how long it will last. So hopefully this was informative to you. Again, I will link it down below, and I will tell you I link all of the products that I ever use on my face or talk about down below. And even though it is said down below, they are affiliate links. So that if you do click on those links and buy through that link, I will get a partial commission off that. It does not cost you anything extra, and some people aren't comfortable with that. If you don't care, I would love for you to actually use those links. It just gives me a little bit more of a payback for the work that I do put into this channel. If you don't want to use that, I totally understand. You'll just need to not use the links. So I just want to be really open and honest with you about that. But everything is always linked down below. If I can find this anywhere else by the time I upload this video other than the Armani website, I'll be sure to link that too. But be aware that if you do order from the Armani website, they are on Ebates. I believe they're on Ebates or MrRebates.com, which is another one that I use. So don't order anything from Armani without getting your cash back first. So this was very long-winded, but I know it was a lot of information to throw out at you. If you have any questions, be sure and put them down in the comment section. As always, be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I hope you have a very blessed day.